Welcome to Direction Northeast. Hello, I'm Amanda Broome. This program is a presentation of the Mass Communications Department of Northeast State Community College. Do you have the passion to follow your dreams? How does one successfully pick up and start over? Our guest spells out the answer in his book, Quitter. His name is Jon Acuff, and we'll meet him right after this.
Business, medical, and financial institutions must have confidence in the data that they use. Information assurance is the strategic use of technology and software to protect data from internal and external threats. Northeast State offers an associate's degree program designed to fill the demand for information assurance professionals. The Information Assurance program offers hands-on personal instruction. Northeast State Community College is an accredited institution offering financial aid and job placement. Northeast State, we're here to get you there.
I hated doing something I loved outside of work, feeling alive and engaged, only to have it all disappear the moment I walked through the door of my day job. I didn't hate the work per se. I liked my boss and the people I worked with. It wasn't that I just hated the 40 hours of my week, didn't feel like anything like the few hours of my weekend when life made sense. Those are the words of our guest. Welcome to Direction Northeast, best-selling author Jon Acuff.
Thanks for having me, Amanda.
Thank you for being here. Mr. Acuff, how does it feel to hear those words from your best-selling book, Quitter?
Well, I would say it's surreal. It's always a little surreal to hear somebody else share your words. I mean, it's exciting to me to get the chance to write books and speak and share ideas with other people. So it's always fun to do interviews like this.
Absolutely. And before, you had a day job, just kind of in the regular workforce, just one of the many ponds of life. Did you ever dream about or ever really foresee yourself being here in kind of the stardom aspect of the show?
Well, I mean, my wife would say no, because she'd say I'm not a star, certainly. But I would say that first I had to get through kind of my quitting days. I was a serial quitter. I had 8 jobs in 8 years. And I always thought the next one would be the one that made me happy. And so I'd have a 6-month honeymoon period. But then I'd get bored and get bitter and go, this job doesn't understand me. They don't appreciate my immense talents. And I'd quit and go to another job. And the same problems from the last job would show up at the new one. And so eventually I had to be honest and say the common denominator in every horrible job I ever had was me. And what was I going to do about that? How did I make sure that I didn't donate 10 more years to something I didn't feel called to do?
Wow, that's tough. Absolutely. And when you were in college, what did you foresee yourself doing?
Primarily being a jerk. I was such a jerk in college. That's usually the first thing I do when I meet people and they say, I knew you in college. As I say, I'm so sorry. And then we get to have a conversation. So that was kind of my plan for college, was be dumb, and did that for a few years. And so college wasn't the best. I wasn't making great decisions in college. And that kind of became this slingshot that launched me into cubicles and jobs and jumping. And so it took me a while to really figure out what do I feel called to do and how do I do it in a smart way.
Mm-hmm. Stuff. So when you were in these cubicles, what were your feelings? Like how did you feel about being there?
Well, I think that you get into a zone where you feel stuck. I meet a lot of people that feel that same way. I often say that we're the I'm but generation. When I ask people what they do, they always tell me the same thing. I'm a teacher, but I want to be an artist. I'm a stay-at-home mom, but I want to start a business. I'm this major, but I want to be that major. And you see that in college sometimes. Sometimes students inherit a dream from a parent. And so I'll talk to them, and they'll pull me aside and say, hey, my mom always told me I'd be a really great lawyer, and I'm getting close to having to go to law school, and I hate that idea. Or on the flip side, I'll get emails from people, and they'll say, I'm a dentist. I'm in my 2nd year being a dentist, and I hate it. And I knew I hated it in dental school, but now I've got $200,000 in debt, and I'm stuck. And so I felt like a lot of people feel, which was stuck, the idea of this is forever, this spot, this is what I have to do for 40 years, and then you eventually retire, and you kind of look back on life and go, where did it all go? So I felt very stuck, and I think for me, social media and the internet and all the opportunities that we all have right now is what started to make me think, what if I could do something different?
Mm. So it seems as if this indecisiveness, this not knowing where you belong, starts at a very young age. Would you say that that's typical for humans, is to not know where we belong?
Certainly, I think part of it is, my big belief is that finding out what you're called to do isn't a first date, it's usually a reunion. Most of us have experienced it at a young age, and we've loved it. But what often happens is that people will criticize it, people who matter to us. I have a friend of mine named Liz, and she's in her 40s, and she told me one day, when I was in the 8th grade, I used to love to dance. That's what I felt most passionate about. And her mom pulled her aside one day and said, hey, you know you're not going to be a professional dancer, right? You know that's not in the cards for you, right? And do you think Liz danced a whole lot after that? Of course not. And I understand that as a parent. I do. I mean, I'm a parent. I've got 2 daughters. And you don't want your kid to discover they can't sing on American Idol. You don't want that to be the first time they're introduced to that reality. But the challenge is that when you as a parent, as a professor, as an employer, when you tell somebody what they can't be, you're predicting a future you don't control. I don't know what Amanda looks like at 35 or at 45 or at 55. How dare I try to speak into that? And so what often happens is that as a kid you have a dream and somebody says, how will you ever make money with that? How is that major going to pay off? How is that? And so you take that dream and you put it back on the shelf and you put another year and another year into doing something you don't feel called to do. So I think a lot of times it's fear and discouragement get pretty loud.
So for college students and younger people who are not yet in the workforce, but they are still feeling the same sort of emotions that you talked about in your book about being stuck and not knowing where to go and having a dream, what sort of what words would you give them?
I would say give yourself the gift of patience. The idea that at 18 you'll know what your job is for the next 40 years is crazy. Your brain isn't physically finished forming yet until your mid-20s. So the idea that we sit down an 18-year-old and go, hey, you just have to pick what the next 50 years look like right here, is that pressure is nuts. And then culture comes in and goes, hey, best years of your life. These are the best years of your life. And the calendar and the poster you see of college is people on a double bike with shiny teeth playing Frisbee in the quad. And then you come to college and you go, hey, when do the best years start? Because it doesn't feel like that yet. And we put this tremendous pressure on, and as if the rest of your life is just a downhill slope. You know, and you see people say that about Europe. They'll go to Europe while you can, go in college, as if Europe is closed to you in your 30s. As if you went over to Spain, they go, oh, I'm sorry, you're 32. You have to go to Branson, Missouri. That's where you vacation now. You're too old. You get to come to Europe in college. And so I think one of the things I'd say to college students is give yourself some time. Let yourself figure it out. Let it be okay. I mean, at 23, at 24, at 25, you might not jump right to your dream job, but you can start to build that. And so don't put that pressure on yourself that, okay, right out of school, I have to have it all figured out. If you talk to any honest, successful 70-year-old, they'll never tell you, at 23, I knew exactly where my life was going to end up. We don't control the finish line. The only line we have control over is the starting line. So I'd say to college students, be really deliberate about what you're going to start, and then give yourself lots of grace to make lots of mistakes at that, because you're going to learn along the way. I didn't write Nashville on a whiteboard years ago and then plot my way to working with Dave Ramsey. What I did do is start a blog, I started to write, I started to share what I feel was the gift I was given, and then I got to see how life took me in different places.
Wow. So for students who are, or for anyone who has been told over and over that their dreams aren't going to make money and that's not what they should pursue and they should go into this specific field for this amount of money, what advice would you give them to find their dream that they've put on the shelf, that they might not even know anymore?
Well, I think one of the things I'd say is be smart about it. We often talk about dreaming as you got to step out in faith, you got to just go for it, and then we see these people lose their houses and their marriages and all this as they kind of dream. I mean, there's a popular song right now from John Mayer about a man who he's done with the world, and so he builds a submarine in his basement, and he sails it all the way to Tokyo. And you go, wow, what an amazing song that is, until you realize that the lyrics say his wife told his kids he was crazy. So in that scenario, it's him against the world. He says, hey kids, dad's got a dream, and guess what? It's to get rid of you. I'm building a one-man submarine ride. So we often don't look at dreaming the right way. So I'd say don't be ashamed to have a day job while you build your dream. When you have a day job that's paying the bills, it gives you a powerful access to a powerful word, which is no. You get to say no. And so I have friends, for instance, that want to be photographers. And a lot of them will quit their day jobs where they're making money to be a professional photographer. And because they don't have any money coming in, all of a sudden they have to say yes to every wedding. And what happens is that by the end of the year, every weekend working every wedding, working with brides, which are difficult clients, they hate photography, they hate weddings, and their dream has burned out. And so I'd say be patient, be smart about it. It's okay to have a day job. Think about it like a patron. You know who had a day job? Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo. They had patrons. When Leonardo da Vinci needed to paint something, he often had to plan weddings as his day job in order to earn the money and the right to paint. And so when somebody tells me, I'm just going to quit my job, I always go, as long as you're more creative than Leonardo da Vinci. If that's what you're saying, just do it. Don't come up with a plan. Just go for it. He needed one, but you're way more creative probably than Leonardo da Vinci.
Wow. So what advice would you give to someone who is struggling with patience, who's got this passion within them, but doesn't know how to wait it out?
Well, I think one thing I'd say is practice. A lot of times we want to go from an all or nothing situation. So I had a friend who worked in a PR firm and he wanted to be an actor. He said, I really want to be an actor. And so I said, well, are you doing any acting on the weekends in local theater? No. Are you reading scripts before work? No. Are you doing any acting at night? No. Well, then you don't really want to be an actor. You're not practicing your dream. You just have this fantasy of one day I'll be full-time PR, one day I'll be full-time actor. Or our friends that'll go, I want to start a coffee shop. And I'll say, have you worked at one before? No. Could you work at Starbucks for 6 months first and learn if you even hate coffee? Like maybe you hate retail hours. And so don't buy that all or nothing myth. So if I was talking to someone and they said, I've got this passion, I'd start to ask them, well, tell me about how you're practicing it right now. And I'd say things like, are you getting up half an hour early before your day job starts to do it? That was the biggest game changer for me was, would I put time into it? Our intentions are liars. We often have great words about what we're going to do with our dreams. Dreamers are a dime a dozen. The world is lousy with dreamers. Doers are rare. So I always try to encourage people to move from the dream words to some doing actions. So that's what I'd say to somebody that they said, I've got this huge dream and it's taking forever. I'd ask, well, what are the things you're doing to move it forward? And often they're not doing anything except being really frustrated. So if you can even just go half an hour a day, and if you can't get up half an hour early to work on your dream, you've got the wrong dream. If you won't pay that cost, if a little less sleep isn't worth your dream, you haven't found the right dream yet.
So how long, you're talking about patience, how long did it take you to write this book, The Quitter?
Well, I lived it for about 10 years first and made a lot of mistakes. But it took me about a year to write. But for me, writing with patience, for instance, I've written 2 million words on my blog for free in order to write my first book, which was 50,000 words. So that idea of putting drops in the bucket and building that relationship. Or we did a project once on my site where we wanted to raise $30,000 to build a kindergarten in Vietnam. And so I asked the readers to help me with that, and we raised the money. We thought it would take 8 weeks, and we raised it in 18 hours. And it was just awesome. And the headline in the paper was, Blogger raises $30,000 in 18 hours. But the reality really was Blogger raises $30,000 in 18 months, because every day I had been building that relationship. But the fantasy is you show up one day and go, hey, you've never heard of me, buy my book, use my dream, do all this. And so you've got to kind of put those daily steps towards this so that when it's time, you've got a big enough rock to roll down that hill, and you do get to raise $30,000, or you do get to publish a book, or you do get to host your own show on a TV channel. That's kind of, for me, you add steps to it. And if it's something you love doing, you love it along the way. You've got to figure out what's my awesome, what's something that I love doing, because fame, money, all those things are eventually empty, and they're really horrible fuel for your dream. It's got to be something that this is what gives me joy, and I would do it if nobody was watching, if nobody was reading, if nobody was paying for me. This is just what I was called to do, so I'm going to do it regardless of the results. The results are awesome. I love results. I love consequences of great actions, but they can't be what drives you to do it, because you'll stop.
So you have the drive in you, and you would do it even if nobody was watching. But the results that you were saying, they come when people watch. Mm-hmm. So how do you get people to believe in your dream? How did you get all those people on your blog to even be on your blog?
Well, the first thing, I mean, for me, so I started the site, and day 9, 4,000 people showed up. So that was kind of my viral moment. Now the challenge is that it's hard to turn a viral moment into a vital moment and into something that's long lasting. I mean, you're not going to see the double rainbow guy again. You're not going to see the hide your wife, hide your kids again. There's not a sequel to those viral moments. And so the challenge for me was, okay, I had a viral moment, and then I had to faithfully write every day, sometimes multiple times a day, and do what I call going first. When you go first with your gift, you give everyone else in the room the gift of going second, because it's hard to go first. You don't know the boundaries. You don't know what's too much information. And so I'm really passionate about that, about going first with your dream and encouraging people. And then learning how to serve an audience and going, okay, what do I need to make sure they understand this idea, that this idea applies to them, that, you know, if I just wanted to write about things that I only cared about, I'd write a journal in my, you know, in the basement, you know, and not share it. But if I have an audience, I need to serve them. And so for me, consciously asking, okay, how does this help somebody? How does this add value to their life? How do I encourage somebody with this versus how do I do this, you know, selfish kind of, it's all about me. Me parade blogs are not fun to read to me. And so I try to be very conscious of going, what am I giving back to somebody in this moment? And it's always more fun to help somebody else chase their dream than it is to obsess about your own.
That is an interesting slogan. I really like that. There's always more fun. That's cool. Well, what do you think helped you the most in your past getting to the place where you are? You said that you have a journalism degree with an emphasis in advertising. That sounds a lot to me like that it would emphasize people and what people want. Is that true?
Oh,
Did that help
without
you?
a doubt. That's a great point. For me, I like to say I don't write art, I write action. And art is great, but in journalism, I learned how to write action, how to encourage somebody to take an action after something they'd experienced from me. So yeah, working at Home Depot and Bose and Staples and Chick-fil-A and all these big branding companies and learning, okay, when you write something this way, people are able to act on it. You know, one of the things for me in advertising, learning that the best stories are the ones you help other people tell themselves. So if I'll write an ad and I'll give you a sentence about the beach, you have, you know, for me, I have 36 years in my own head of my own vocabulary. And if you'll leave space for me in that story, I'll tell myself that story. And I'll talk about Ipswich and the beach and all that. So most ads, most books, most blogs overfill the space, and you don't leave any room for me as the person to go in and tell myself that story. So I learned in advertising, you be a catalyst. You start the story, but you leave some space. And so for me, having 12 years of branding and going, when you write a sentence this way, it completely changes where the person's going to go next. And so understanding emotional pulls and then also balancing that. I mean, you know, at Home Depot, for instance, when we do a bath remodel, I wouldn't say you need a new bathtub. I'd say you deserve a sanctuary. When we do a kitchen remodel, I wouldn't say you need granite countertops. I'd say, imagine if Thanksgiving was at your house this year and your parents got to. So understanding, here's what emotion is like. Here's how you storytell. And especially in a world, we have information overload right now. There's more content available than ever before. And if you can't tell a story, if you can't speak to somebody's heart, forget it.
So talking about how you got to where you are now, you mentioned Dave Ramsey. Tell me a little bit about that. How did you come to know him?
Sure. In 2008, somebody on his team read this blog that I had started. And they have 2 weekly meetings there, Dave's team, a staff meeting and then kind of a devotional meeting where the whole team comes together and they'll bring an author, a musician, or a speaker. And so they had me come speak, and it was the second time I'd ever done that. I was horrible. The first time, I threw Skittles into the crowd because I'd made a joke about that. So I did Skittles segues and just pelted people in the face with hard candy during my speech. So all I do is win. And so did that, came up and spoke, and we started to talk about what would it look like to work here. And I honestly thought, this is it. This is my moment. I called my in-laws. My parents were moving to Nashville. Every dream has a this is it moment. And it didn't happen that way. It took 2 more years of patience and kind of work. And during it, I wasn't like, wow, what a gift of patience I received. I was like, are you kidding me? I mean, I'm not going to sit up here and go, just be patient. It's easy to be patient. No, patience is horrible. It's the worst word. I wish I could say, hey, here are the 3 things you do. On the cover of my book, it would just be me with shiny teeth or like this, the power triangle that motivational speakers do. That's great too. But that's not how life really works. And so spoke there in 2008, spoke there in 2010, came up in 2009 and then 2010. And Dave bought a copy of my book for his whole staff, which was ballin'. That was the best day for me. And so he said, hey, let's have a conversation. And I pretended like, yeah, I meet with celebrities on Wednesdays. That's great. I was going to meet with some other famous people today anyway. So we kind of had this talk, and he said, look, the only word capitalized in our mission statement is hope. It's not finances, it's not credit cards, it's hope. We love the way you share hope. We'd love to show you how to do that on a bigger level. And for me, as a young guy who doesn't know how to do this, I mean, there's so much I don't know how to do. To be led and learn and grow within an organization like that was a huge opportunity. And so that was 2 years ago.
So you mentioned the word hope. What is the hope that you talk about in your book?
Well, in Quitter, the idea that you don't have to accept average and be stuck. And I've got a new book that kind of builds on that idea coming out in the spring. Just the idea that right now you have more access to actually chasing your dream than ever before. I mean, 10 years ago, if you lost your job, you couldn't plug into a community of people. You couldn't easily research jobs. You couldn't get a freelance gig on Craigslist. Now we have so many different options. So a big part of the hope is just we've got a lot of tools that nobody else has ever had before. And if you put in the most important cost, which is hustle, you can really go far.
Ooh. So you said hustle. Can you expound on that? Like what does the world expect you to do with your dream? How do you hustle?
Be entitled. That the world expects you to be entitled with it, and to come like when I was 23 and I got to an ad agency, I was kind of like, been out of college for an hour and a half. I'm an expert. Treat me like one. I'm here for you to soak in my greatness, and nobody did, and they shouldn't have. I wasn't an expert. I needed, I'm not an expert yet. I'm still learning. I'm still growing. So the world, it's kind of like the housing crisis. We had people that said, I got my first job. I want my 5th house. And banks said, sure, go right ahead. You've had a job for 6 hours. Why wouldn't we give you a loan for $500,000? And we said, you're right. I do deserve that. I really do. I want the house it took my parents 30 years to get, and I want it right now. And so the world, to me, expects you to jump out and be entitled to this. So what I expect is that we instead go, no, hard work still beats 100% of the shortcuts. And for me, I'll talk to people and they go, I'm just so sick of my job. I've been here forever. I go, how long have you worked there? 6 months. Whole 6 months. Oh, tell me about that. What's been the hardest part of that 6 months? I mean, you've almost made it to summer. Like, is it, and so that expectation of we want things quickly, we don't want to work for them. And so if you hustle, like hard work still beats everything. And then the other thing is not being a jerk. Like I've been amazed at how far kindness goes. When I go speak to places, after I speak, they'll say, hey, thanks for not yelling at any of the staff or like hitting on anybody or not swearing at us. And I think, I don't know who these speakers are that are being jerks to people, but thank you. Like the bar is so low. Like for me to be amazing, I just have to not demand a grand piano in the green room, that I can play to relax myself before I go speak. You go, this is crazy. So being nice is really powerful. Being patient, being humble, being grateful, going, wow, I don't know how to do these 10 things because I'm 22, I'm 23, I've got a lot left to learn. It turns out, I haven't been in the industry for 15 years. And when I am, 15 years later, I'll look back on this time and go, man, I was silly. Why did I think I was the best in the world? I just started. Why did I put up that facade of ego? And so those are some of the things for me that I think can really make a difference.
Mm-hmm. So for someone who is younger and who hasn't had a lot of experience, where do you learn things like patience and how to stick it out and how to be nice? They don't teach you that in college.
Well, for me, one of the big things I totally say to every college student, and I believe we're going to see this over the next 10 years, is that you've got to start a blog, you've got to start using Twitter, you've got to be smart with Pinterest. What we're starting to see right now is employers will sit down and go, okay, tell us why you deserve this job. And the college grad will go, I'm really passionate. And they'll go, okay, do you have a blog about it? Oh, I'm not passionate like that. I'm passionate from 9 to 5. I'm not learning about industry experts or plugging into a community about this topic. I'm just passionate enough for you to hire me for this job. And so on the flip side, we're seeing college students that go, yeah, actually I do. I have Twitter followers. I've been writing about this subject for the last year, and I'm really passionate about it. And would you like to read my blog? And I know all the industry experts that you do because I'm I'm plugged into that. And so that kind of thing makes a huge difference. And I met a 22-year-old college student, college senior, and I said, well, I keep hearing that unemployment rate is bad for college grads. It's up to 20%. And he just laughed and said, 20%, that just means you have to be a B-. You can't be a B-. He's like, you just got to hustle. And so he was going to Indianapolis once a week to set up relationships and network. He said, most of my college students are waiting until after they graduate to hustle and network. I'll have a 4-year head start on those guys. And so for me, starting now, that if you are in a major that you really care about, to start to figure out how can you show that. It can be Tumblr, it can be Pinterest. I mean, it's not difficult, but so that when you sit down at that table and you interview for that first time and they go, well, why? Everybody says they're passionate. Why are you more passionate than other people? You go, well, actually, I've built up a community of 1,000 readers about this subject, and here's what that looks like. So little things like that. And then the best thing that you can do for your resume, the absolute best thing is never put your goals at the top. That is useless space. Put your results at the top. Everybody puts their goals, and they're wasted words. They all say the same thing. I want to work in a people-based, oriented company where I can use my skills, like it's just nonsense. If you put your results and just do like a single sentence and go, in college, worked at here, did this, and it's a single paragraph, that changes interview process.
Wow. So kind of to wrap up the show.
I'm 6'4". Was that going to be your next question? These cameras make me look shorter.
Oh, no.
I appreciate it.
Where can people find out more? Not about your height, but about your book.
Sure. Well, I've already shared that, so they don't. That mystery's over. JonAcuff.com, which is just JONACUFF. On Twitter, I tweet like a maniac. I've tweeted during this interview with my feet. A lot of people couldn't see that. That's how good I am. So at Jon Acuff is my Twitter name. Quitter is available in any bookstore. StuffChristiansLike.net is another blog I write. So any of those places, I'd love to connect with folks. And it's been a fun interview. Thanks for doing it, Amanda.
Yeah, absolutely. So what is your blog? Is it the jonacuff.com?
Yep.
Is that one your blog? Cool. Yep. And how long have you had that?
I've only had that one for about a year. I started my first blog in 2001, and then started the one that blew up, StuffChristiansLike.net, in 2008.
Cool. So you started Stuff Christians Like. Wow. And that's the one that blew up.
Yeah, that's the one that went viral.
That's really cool. That's neat.
Thanks.
So, so you moved from Massachusetts to Nashville, is that correct?
Massachusetts to Atlanta, and then to Nashville.
Ooh, okay. So, so moving from Massachusetts to Nashville, you were kind of pursuing your dream. Why don't more people pursue their dreams?
Most of the time, it's fear. Fear gets really loud. Voices of doubt get really loud. Fear, here's the thing about fear. It only bothers you when you do things that matter. So if you want to be average, if you want to rock vanilla right into the grave, fear will give you a free pass. But the minute you stand up, fear gets kind of loud. And so a lot of times when you start something new, you'll hear this voice that says, who are you to do that? Who are you to think you could pursue that major? Who are you to think you could pursue that job? And so that's why most people wait on their dreams or never pursue them in the first place, is that they give fear the biggest vote at the table.
Wow, thank you so much for being here with us.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you. We'll be back in just a moment to wrap up Direction Northeast.
What if there was a place
where your mind is nourished,
your time respected,
a place where you don't feel lost in the crowd,
where you get the attention you need
and deserve?
What if that place is right here? Right here.
Right here, all along.
Over 80 programs of study.
A main campus.
And convenient teaching sites.
Unlimited potential.
Right in your backyard.
Northeast State.
Northeast State.
Northeast State Community College.
That concludes the program for today. We learned about the power of following your dreams and the views of best-selling author Jon Acuff. Community is very important to the students at Northeast State Community College, and this program takes a look at a few of the subjects they find important. Until we meet next time, on behalf of the students and staff and faculty at Northeast State Community College, I'm Amanda Broome, and this is Direction Northeast.